Man, let's get at it, man. I just saw one of the most damaging videos on Instagram that I have ever saw. I'm gonna say that again. I saw the most damaging video when it comes to their democracy on Instagram, and I'm gonna show you the video and I'm gonna respond to it because the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner over the weekend, um, you know, the trail is there. When I say the trail of the rhetoric. He had a manifesto, and the talking points sound so political. This brother Cole Allen, from Southern California, from Torrance, just got his master's degree in 2025 from Cal State Dominguez Hills in Carson, in computer science. Somehow, some way, finds himself taking a train all the way to Washington, D.C., carrying guns, and he really did not have no exit strategy. Now, was it a death mission? Because typically, when you do something like this, you don't have no exit plan. It's suicide. So this is why we can't trust any suicidal individual. But why would he do such a thing? And the rhetoric, that the Democrats spew and the demonization of human beings being promoted by the media is the catalyst. So I'm going to let you hear from the horse's mouth, or should we say the heifer's mouth, because this is Nancy Pelosi telling us their strategy. And this is something that I think that all Americans need to, we need to push back on this. We need to, call them out for what it is, because basically the devil is a Democrat. I've always said that, and I will continue to say this because Nancy Pelosi, this is what she said in terms of, and this is from, let me see here, Town Hall Media, and it basically says Pelosi admits the Democratic playbook live on camera. So check out what Nancy Pelosi says, and like I said, put your reaction in the comment. Let us know how you really feel, because I know I'm not the only one that understands that the rhetoric got to stop, because if we were kumbaya, we'd be loving on each other. But basically, they're following the Democratic playbook, and this is the Democratic playbook, and Nancy Pelosi basically put it out on live TV for all of us to hear, all of us to process, and the ball is in our court. So what are we going to do moving forward? Check this out.
There's somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it, and then you write it, and if they see it's reported in the press that this, and this, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident.
So did y'all hear that? I'm gonna let you hear it one more time, clearly, because I know when I chop it up, a lot of individuals are going to say, oh, let the video play. I'm going to play it one more time. Listen to what she says very closely. This is an elected official, a career politician, talking about demonization. And I'm going to let her tell you, and then I'll give my reaction. Listen to what Nancy Pelosi had to say.
It's a diversionary tactic. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and if they see it's reported in the press that this, and this, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident.
So now I'm going to break it down word for word. This is an elected official talking about demonization, and this is sick. I mean, literally, this is what we're dealing with in American politics. So as common sense Americans who love this country, how can we sit back and continue to allow these people to do these tactics? Because we know when you're talking about anything about demonization, that's when you're dealing with the devil. And this is why their democracy is being prosecuted right now, because Black America is waking up the foundational Black Americans are waking up and we're challenging the party. So it's not like we're switching to being Republicans. We're just basically choosing to be single because we don't like this Democratic bitch, this Democratic hoe, this Democratic slut, this whatever this thing is. We don't like it anymore, and we want to be single. We want to be nonpartisan independents moving forward because their democracy is full of you know what. But I'm gonna break it down. Let's take to the lab what she's talking about. Listen, I'm gonna break it down.
And it's a diversionary tactic.
First of all, a diversionary tactic. A diversionary tactic. What is that? A diversionary tactic is basically you create a diversion, meaning you create a sound or something over here while you're doing something over there. Simple. A diversionary tactic. So she basically saying that their Democratic playbook is to use diversionary tactics. Let's go.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize.
You demonize. Demonize. And it's crazy that their democracy and demonize has the same root word. Okay. Now, if you want to be a preacher or a pastor, you know, you study, or like most of us had theology classes in school, especially you went to a liberal arts college, theology. You know what the flip side of theology is? Demonology. So they're practicing what they are, demonic forces. Listen to what she says. You demonize. Okay.
And then we call it the wrap-up smear.
The wrap-up smear, meaning you smear, the smear campaign. You tear somebody's name down. And we know without a shadow of a doubt, this is what they do. We see it every day on the media.
You want to talk politics? You call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody.
Smear somebody. Every night you turn the television on, whether it's the late night news, the 6 o'clock news, or your late night talk shows, it's a smear campaign. You know, they don't talk about Eric Swalwell dating a Chinese spy. They don't talk about Eric Swalwell, who was the leading Democratic governor candidate in the state of California, got some sexual assault charges, being accused of raping many people. They don't talk about that, but they come up with all this other nonsense because it's a demonizing smear campaign by creating diversions. But let's go.
With falsehoods and all the rest.
Falsehoods is a lie. So if I created falsehoods on you, that means I'm lying on you. So she's basically making it plain this is their strategy and this is what they do. The Democrats, and I'm going to say this on record, the Democrats can no longer be trusted. And like I said, I'm a former Democrat that want to divorce this weak, this nasty hoe named Democratica. I want to get so far away from this slut. I want to get so far away from this whore. I want to get so far away from, and I'm speaking metaphorically about the Democratic Party that's been in my life. I want this bitch to leave me alone and get out of my life. That does not mean that I want to go be a Republican. It just means that I want to be single and choose my own path without this whore, this nasty slut, this Democrat, this immoral, detestable human being when it comes to, you know, metaphorically a person. But I just want that Democratic slut out my life. And like I said, I'm not running to be a Republican. I want to be single. And if you think you don't have any choices, you know, then, you know, you need to, you know, seek God. Okay. If you don't have any choice, because the number one thing that God gives us is choice. So the choice is yours. And I'm choosing to be nonpartisan independent because I don't like this nasty stank hoe slut, this lying, demonizing, you know, this deflector, this detractor, you know, this smear campaign, all the rudiments of the devil, this nasty stank hoe, this Democrat. And I want her to get out of my life.
And then you merchandise it.
And then you merchandise it. What that mean? You dress it up. You dress it up. You make it look good. You make it look nice. You merchandise it. Come on.
And then you write it.
And then you write, and she's talking to the press. Then you get the news to report on it, on your evening news. And then your evening news translate to your talk shows. And then your talk shows translate to your other outlets, and then social media. And then all of a sudden, there's demonizations, these falsehoods, you know, these distractions, you know, all become true because the news reported on it. And now it's on social media. Oh, I saw it on Instagram. Oh, I heard the news reported on it. Just because clearly what she's saying is just because the news is reporting on it, it does not mean it's true. And one thing I do agree with the president, I can't stand that fake news. That's why I do what I do.
unless they see it's reported in the press.
See, it's reported in the press. So that means it must be the Holy Grail. So the press is being lied to, and the press is promoting the lies, and now you don't know what to believe. Just like Barack Obama did signed the Smith-Monk Act in 2012 to basically allow propaganda to be used on American citizens, meaning it's their playbook to lie to the American people just to somehow, some way keep us deceived so the devil could stay in power. But I want this Democratic hoe, this Democratic slut to get out of my life, and I want to be single politically. I don't want to be, with MAGA. I don't want to be none of the Green Party, American Indian Party, Peace and Freedom Party, none of that. Libertarian, none of that. Nonpartisan independent. I'd rather be single. So when I talk about the relationship, just look at relationships as a metaphor. We've been Democrats our whole lives. So since we've been Democrats our whole entire lives, and how far has it gotten us? It's erasing our brand. We're learning that they're still in our history. We're learning that they created this race and this construct, and, they're locking us up and all of this stuff, creating all types of things, but they're lying through their teeth. And that's what they do. It's the Democratic playbook, the Democratic strategy.
That this, and this.
Uh-huh.
So they have that validation that the press reported the smear.
See, they want the press to report that smear. That's why your Hakeem Jeffries jump in front of that mic every day and say whatever. This is why these Democrats jump out and repeat these lies to somehow get into your mind and get you to lose your train of thought, and to have you jump on a train and go all the way to Washington, D.C. to do what? To get shot in your ass. They shot him in his booty. Okay. When dude jumped back and they popped him. This is why he was laying face down on the ground, butt naked. They stripped him down, and he didn't have a plan. But something motivated this brother to ruin his life. Something motivated. I'm talking about the shooter at the White House Correspondents' Dinner over the weekend.
And then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise.
So after they do all that, now they're going to merchandise and call a press conference, and Hakeem Jeffries and all them going to get out there and lie. So basically what they're saying is they are the orchestrator of lies. And when you think about God, who's God's opposition? The devil. So the opposition of righteousness is unrighteousness. The opposition of positive is negativity. The opposition of optimism is pessimism. And the opposition of positive is negative. So the opposition of us is the Democratic Party, and she's putting it out there on record.
The press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic.
And look at the smile. It's a tactic. Yeah, it's a tactic. Okay. So it's a tactic, but it's not unlawful, but it's immoral. And that's the issue with the party. It's immoral. So I'm going to let it play.
It's self-evident.
I'm going to let it play full.
It's a diversionary tactic. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, call it the wrap-up smear. Mm-hmm. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest.
Wow.
And then you merchandise it. Mm-hmm. And then you write it, unless they see it's reported in the press that this, and this.
Wow.
So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic. And it's...
Wow. That's an elected official giving us the game plan and the blueprint and what they, feed us every day on the nightly news when it comes to politics. This is crazy. So let's talk about cause and effect. So the cause and effect. So with that being said, you heard exactly what she said. So watch this brother right here. Not this brother. Watch this man right here. This is Ted Lieu talking about Donald Trump. And when you hear or read the manifesto of Cole Allen, it's basically word for word exactly what Ted Lieu says. And he's basically using, the tactic that Nancy Pelosi just spoke about. Check this out.
Of Donald Trump threatening to kill children. So I encourage the press to go look at these allegations, and I'm highly disturbed that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche just got the law wrong. Yesterday he said, essentially, that it is not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, that's actually not correct. if Jeffrey Epstein was human trafficking minors for these sex parties, and you show up and patronize the establishment at that party, yes, you're guilty, because patronizing is part of the law, the federal sex trafficking law. So Deputy General Todd Blanche just got that wrong, which maybe explains why they aren't investigating all these folks, including Donald Trump. He needs to read the law and investigate these people. He also needs to resign, not only for not knowing the law, but a massive, not only screw up, but the biggest privacy violation in history. They release a lot of pictures of minors unredacted, just violated the privacy of these girls. It is uncalled for what they did. The one thing that they could not do under this law was to invade the privacy of these women now, who were girls at the time, who were victims of sex trafficking. Also, he met with Ghislaine Maxwell, moved her to a minimum security prison, and then got a puppy for her. So for all those reasons, he's just got to leave the Department of Justice. So what?
So let me reset the room. Okay, I didn't have it queued. So this is what I wanted you to hear about, what Nancy Pelosi was talking about, the smear campaign. What she called it, the bait and switch. What she called it, the what did she call it? The let me see here.
It's self-evident. And it's a diversionary tactic. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize, and then you...
There it is.
The wrap-up smear.
The wrap-up smear is the word I was looking for.
You want to talk politics? Call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody...
Okay.
...with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, unless they see it's reported
talking about the press. It's in the press.
This, and this.
Uh-huh. It must be
so
true.
They have that validation that the press reported the smear.
Uh-huh.
And then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident.
It's a tactic. So now this is what I wanted you to hear, because this is the tactic that Ted Lieu is doing right now, the smear campaign, the wrap-up smear, whatever she called it.
Are
Check this out.
Republicans so interested in Bill and Hillary Clinton? It's because they're trying to distract from the fact that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files thousands and thousands of times.
Thousands and thousands of times. I'm going to stop it right there, because he said thousands and thousands of times means that at least 2,000, right? So Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. This is the Epstein library. Donald Trump is in the Epstein file 1,819 times. And that's just his name. There's no emails, there's no communication, but there's communications. He said thousands and thousands. So that's the smear campaign. That's the salacious lies, because he's not even in there for 2,000. Okay. And I looked through all of these. I see no direct communication, just a lot of pictures. And then the debunked part when it comes to, the claims that he did something at his Trump's golf course in Palos Verdes. The female said it was in like 1992 or 94 when the golf course didn't open until 2008. But everything that they basically said about Trump, was dated in 2025, was just created and put inside of the Epstein files just to basically, they could do the smear campaign to protect the others that's in there. So, hit the like, hit the notification, because I'm going to be doing the Epstein Awards presented by Barack Barry Hussein Obama. And I'm going to, the people who got the Citizens Awards, who President Obama basically gave, the Medal of Freedom and all that. I'm going to basically tie that to the Epstein files, because I've been in these files. This thing is deep. But let's just listen to the lies, what Ted Lieu, and his name is Wing Ping. Okay, he's Taiwanese, so there's no Teds in Taiwan, but his name is Wing Ping. Okay, he's a Taiwan national, and it's crazy how somehow these foreign nationals come to this country and just do whatever, because they'll be willing to do whatever to look out for their people. And it hurts my heart, because we're not willing to do the same. All we do is fight, argue, and debate. But listen to what he says about Donald Trump. And then I'm going to go ahead and make it make sense as to why I played this.
In those files, there's highly disturbing allegations of Donald Trump raping children. of Donald Trump threatening to kill children. So I encourage the press to go look at these allegations.
So he said that Donald Trump raped children. I mean, like I said, I don't care if you hate the guy. You know he didn't rape no children, because if he did, you know, he would be under the jail. You know, because the crimes that he was charged and all of this stuff, that's all they could get him on. But if he had raped children, no one has went on record and said this. So this is what they call the demonization tactic that Nancy Pelosi says that the Democrats, that's a Democratic strategy.
And I'm highly disturbed that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche just got the law wrong. Yes.
So I'm going to move on because we saw that other part. But look, watch this. This is 60 Minutes. The president, you know, after the shooting, he agreed to an interview with 60 Minutes. And if you understand laws of power, you know, 48 laws of power, whatever you want to call it, you know, all press is good press. But basically, the manifesto that the shooter, Alan Cole, or Cole Allen, basically in his manifesto, he said exactly what Ted Lieu or Wing Ping said, that raping and pedophile and all of that. And then look at the news, basically go ahead and take the bait. Check this out.
So-called manifesto is a stunning thing to read, Mr. President. He appears to reference a motive in it. He writes this, quote, administration officials, they are targets. And he also wrote this, I'm no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes.
Isn't that exactly what Ted Lieu said? Or Wing Ping? So Wing Ping got some explaining to do. Like, really, we got to press the line. And this is why we can't be, you know, with this Democratic whore, with this Democratic slut, with this racist, you know, slave trading, colonial, you know, I mean, colonizer. This is why we need an independent body of nonpartisan independence so that, you know, we can actually challenge the party of slavery, like literally.
What's your reaction
Well,
to that?
I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people. Horrible people.
Horrible people.
Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things.
Yeah.
But I said to myself, you know, I'll do this interview and they'll probably, I read the manifesto, you know, as a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because.
And like I said, I agree with the president. I agree with the president. And like I said, I don't hate no one. You know why? Because I love myself. Okay. Because if you know, hate people, you know, like people like D.O. Hughley, you know, and the cocksucker Don Lemon, you know, Trump's detestable and all of this stuff. I mean, that means you don't love yourself. Because if you had love for yourself, you wouldn't hate your neighbor. Okay, you wouldn't hate your neighbor. And this is the same energy. And what Ted Wing Ping Lieu said is the exact wording, seeming like it was cut and paste and created and put in this man's, you know, paperwork. You know, this is crazy, you know, because his manifesto said the exact same words that Wing Ping said, the exact same words. And it's crazy. And it's crazy. And that's Ted Wing Ping. So listen, I want to see what the headlines about, let me see here. Cole Allen. What is his headlines today? Okay. Well, 7 hours ago, did the suspect of the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooter hit a Secret Service officer? DOJ says it's not sure yet. He used very big words. The students described that as a tutor because he was a tutor in Torrance, California. And the same wording, like I said, at Ted Lieu. And I'm sorry for this Cole Allen right here. Let me see. Let me put it, the other word, Tomas Cole Allen. Okay. Yeah, that hit a little different. Okay, there you go. It's bizarre. I mean, Californians grapple with revelations that suspected Trump gunman, and that's the BBC News. CNN, Cole Allen's social media post compared Trump to Hitler. See what I'm saying? That's the rhetoric. That's the rhetoric. Cole, and that's the CNN. The New York Times headline: one day ago, Cole Allen, correspondence dinner shooting suspect, MS Now. Jordan asked Cole Allen to be charged with attempted assassination, and like, what else could he be, charged with? And like I said, they shot him in the ass. So what I'm saying is, you heard exactly what Nancy Pelosi said. And the gunman is the same rhetoric. So this is 3 presidential assassination attempts within, the last 2 to 3 years. And like I said, I don't wish death on no one, because I understand in terms of leadership and when you are a hero, how, the coward, celebrates. Because if you don't think Trump is a hero, then why are they trying to assassinate him? They assassinated Abraham Lincoln. They assassinated Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. They assassinated JFK. I mean, they tried to shoot Reagan, but Reagan's, situation was a little different because, in 1984, I believe, when his assassination attempt, happened, black stock was like this. Okay. But then once they shot Reagan, because Reagan was pushing forward, the growth of Black America. And once they did the attempted assassination of Reagan, he took away all the affirmative actions. He basically, signed on to the Ira-Contra scandal, meaning, open the floodgates up and bring the drugs in. And, and then the Democratic President Bill Clinton signed the 94 crime bill. So it's like he pretty much set Black America or Black men up like a T-ball. And then when Bill Clinton got in office, Hillary Clinton, basically we're super predators, need to be brought to heel. The racist Joe Biden, the Democratic Southerner, went on record and, argued this in the Senate and got it passed 96-4, I believe. I stand to be corrected, and Bill Clinton with the 94 crime bill just locked us up. And then today there was a gubernatorial debate, and Tom Strayer was not even asked about his private prison investments. He's trying to run for governor, but he invested in private prisons. I'm speaking of Tom Strayer, because if you're in California, he's spending millions upon millions of dollars on campaign ads. I've heard someone on KJLH where somebody was in Compton, Tom, my homeboy, come on, man. And like I said, it is what it is. But they asked him the question about his private prison investments, and he said that was something I did 22 years ago, and I basically, I sold my stock. So to put, for the record, this man was running a hedge fund company, and when the private prisons, was still private, and they was not on Wall Street, he bought 2.1 million shares. And when it went at $9 a share, at $2 a share, okay, $2 a share, he bought 2.1 million. That's Tom Strayer. And then at the peak of that stock, when private prisons, corporations, and GO and all these federal prisons started popping up along with the ICE detention centers, he basically sold his stock, okay, because when it opened on the stock market, it opened at $9. So he had 2.1 million shares at $2 a share. And then it opened up at $9 a share, and he made billions. That's why he's a billionaire. And one thing about the gubernatorial debate that was on, just a minute ago that I just watched, no one talked about reparations. It was a clown show, and it looked like two Republicans will be on the top of the ticket because, like I said, the foundation of Black Americans, we standing down. If you don't move us, if you don't motivate us, we don't step out, we don't go out there and vote, but we're going to be looking at what type of, measures and things that's going to be on down ballot, because hurt my heart when we didn't pass Proposition 6. And Proposition 6 in the state of California was to end involuntary servitude, because most people do not realize that slavery is on the books in the Constitution, in the state Constitution of California. And Governor Gavin Newsom just gave us an apology. The California state legislature passed it. I believe it was 9-1 or 9-1 or 8-2. And Governor Gavin Newsom told Senator Stephen Bradford, do not put that bill on my desk. And if you do, I'll veto it. So literally he vetoed the bill. So, so basically the Democratic rhetoric, the demonization, what Nancy Pelosi's talking about, that's a Democratic strategy. That's what got Cole Allen or Thomas Cole Allen to jump on the train and go out there, because he talked about Trump as being Hitler. Where do you hear that at? On TV. And Nancy Pelosi says, it is what it is, a demonization. So I'm gonna let you hear her one more time. And basically it's the Democrats, and we need to get rid of that whore, that slut. And I'm speaking metaphorically, from a man's perspective, because I got to get this bedwench and concubine out of my life forever. And it doesn't mean that I want to go be with a Republican. I just want to be single and independent and free to do what I choose to do, because anything outside of that is slavery. And I saw one of the most craziest studies. It said 90% of Black Americans vote Democratic and only 9% Republican. So my, warning to you is, don't go to hell, get out of that burning house and leave both of them. I'm speaking Ebonics right now, not both of them. Leave both of them alone, and let's line up in the middle and let's figure out what we can do, because we, the people, need to step up. And Project 2026 is political independence, because somehow, some way, the Democratic Party just destroy. They don't build, they just destroy. Think about it. The number 8 in supreme mathematics is build and destroy, or build or destroy. And somehow, some way,